Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Urban. So today, I get to have one of the best human beings on the planet back on the podcast, my dear friend, Christina Jandali, my business bestie, but the one person that I turn to when I'm needing to solve, how do I grow and build my audience? How do I get people to engage? How do I get them to hear the vision that I have? So I thought it would be it's like the beginning of the year, it'd be a great time to have Christina come back on and kind of talk about what's shifted, because a lot's shifted in the economy, the way people are hearing things, how it's landing. I was talking within my community about how has shifted to an economy of speed with AI, with just the volume of information that is out right now, that it's shifted from an information, generation to truly a speed generation. And so, Christina, I'm glad that you're back on the podcast, helping us figure all this out.
Thanks so much for having me, Shannon.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. So let's dive in. What are you seeing in kind of this newer economy, this post-pandemic economy, this new AI economy, in terms of like really getting people to hear and see what you're doing in the marketplace? Like, what's different than was even 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think that there's trends that are continuing to evolve. And as you were talking about, trends are evolving faster and faster.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, it's trying to keep up with where are things shifting, where are things moving to be able to continue to stand out and to be able to lead the pack. Yeah. And so we started, when Facebook groups first started, it was like the place to be. It was a fun place to hang out. Facebook wanted to put a lot of attention on people being in groups in order to have people staying on the platform for longer periods of time, knowing that they'd be a connection-based, community-based. And that worked. And then many groups started sprouting up and everyone had their group for something or other. And then there was a lot more noise. And when there's more noise in the marketplace, and what happens is that the market gets more sophisticated. They start hearing more promises. There's more options. Therefore, people are scrutinizing where they're going to be spending their time, where they're going to put their energy, whether or not they want to join a community or want to be a part of it. And so what we're really starting to see in the marketplace now is that people are tired of a lot of big, unfounded promises to magically erase any challenges or any problems in people's lives. And instead, people are really looking towards how to create deeper connections and how to create more, how to have more realness and how to have more authenticity. And like you were saying, AI is really starting to take a life of its own. As we were recording this podcast, I had my little AI transcriber coming into the room and you were asking about what's this. And I'm like, there's these tools that are amazing. But when all of this happens, like you go to the airport and instead of ordering from a human, there's an iPad that you can order from. Or speaking of the airport, has been traveling recently, you go to the airport and it scans your face, and rather than a human checking you, there's a scanner that's scanning your face and recognizing and pulling up and knowing that it's your passport and that you're ready to travel. And so we're moving away from a human interaction in our day-to-day lives, and therefore people are craving that more and more. And as a result of that, what we're starting to see is so many industry leaders that may have stepped away from their business and set up more automations are stepping back in. And whether you're just getting started, you're at such an incredible place to be super connected and dialed in with your audience because you have the time, you have the space, you can connect with these people, or you're further along in your business and you realize things got out of hand and things went, got off track and things got out of hand. You're like, what happened? I lost the connection with my people. I lost the connection with my audience. I got to get back in the game here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you bring up intimacy, because I'm watching the trends marketing wise online, and I'm watching the way people are still trying to sell in this non-intimate way. So this really does become a golden season, a separation season. So much so, because I think those people are just missing, like you said, there's this void of human interaction, and we were created to be in community with like-minded people. And so there's this desire. And of course, like I wanted to bring you on because you are the queen of Facebook groups. So I'm just going to ask you straight out, like, are Facebook groups the place that this intimacy is taking place in this current era?
Yeah, I look at Facebook group, and I think it's important, like we define the difference between a Facebook group and other social platforms. Because if we think about Facebook business page or your Instagram or your TikTok or your YouTube, all of those social platforms are like your storefront.
Mhm.
And so you could put up the window dressing, you can put up the clothing on the mannequin, people can go check it out. They can decide, okay, do I want to go inside the store? Do I want to go try on these clothes? Do I want to come in and have an experience? And so it's the windows dressing, whereas your Facebook group is inside the store. It's like, come on, try this on. You're getting to meet someone. How about this? Have you ever thought about this outfit? Or these shoes go well with that shirt? And you have someone that's creating an experience for you. It's an entirely different thing than window dressing and shopping at the other side. So I look at your Facebook group as the center hub of where you can create two-way dialogue, leverage dialogue, and create those connections. And you get to supplement that with people coming onto your email list or maybe your tech subscribers, and you have the opportunity to market to your people on more than one platform. But there's no other place where it's community-based where you can create that level of connection at this point in time, even though there's different things kind of continuing to sprout up.
Yeah, they're trying to sprout up, but I always think about Russell Brunson's like blue ocean, red ocean kind of idea. Like, even if the whack-a-mole of, oh, we're doing community over at Kajabi, love you Kajabi, but like I know they're trying, like there's all these places, but everyone is still randomly scrolling on Facebook. So you really, they are the first in the water, and they've perfected the desired result, which is intimacy with people that have a like-minded cause, possibility place that they're going. So, all right, you've got me convinced that Facebook's not just still in it, but really a place to build the intimacy, connection, community to go to the next level. But how do you get, like, once they're in there, I've heard a lot of people say, like, I can't get my people to talk to me. I can't get them interacting with me. I can't figure out how to get engagement. So I'd love for you to talk about that E word, that engagement word, because it's directly connected to sales. Like, right, if you're in a group and then you connect and then they engage, now there's a two-way conversation happening where they can get to a conversion or a sale. So I'd love for you to talk about that, because you're like the best at that in terms of like getting it from crickets till sold out, right?
Yes. So when we think about engagement, there's two different types of engagement. There's what I call mindless engagement, and then there's purposeful engagement.
Yeah.
So mindless engagement is a lot of times people's go-to, because it's kind of brainless ultimately to set up, and it doesn't require much activity. Therefore, people are more apt to respond to it.
Okay.
For example, a mindless engagement post might be, hey, I'm looking for a new show on Netflix. Can you give me, like, what are you watching right now? Or what's your favorite? Or give me your top ones. Or maybe you're asking, I'm looking for a new book recommendation. What's your book recommendation? So you're asking a question that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what you do in the world or how you help people. It's off topic, but it's fun. It's might be trending on a topic that might be top of mind right now, an opinion around something, but it's not necessarily related to what you do. So people love this because it typically gets people to reply, and they comment because it's an easy reply. But if we're relying on that type of engagement in our group, it's never going to lead to more sales.
Popularity, maybe.
Exactly. No, and certainly the people that are commenting are not a higher value lead because they have dropped a comment. They just simply couldn't help but answer to that. So there's a purpose for having mindless engagement, and we want to do it sporadically just for fun. So we're not so serious all the time, but we don't want to be relying on that. And that's not going to equal more sales. But then we look on the flip side of purposeful engagement, and purposeful engagement is creating conversation that is in a more indirect, open conversational way that speaks into or invites our members to communicate and talk to us and ask questions. So a mindless engagement question might be, I might say, I might say in a Facebook group, for me talking about Facebook groups, I might say, how do you feel about the engagement inside of your Facebook group?
Right.
And we could carry that over to a question in, how do you feel when your spouse ignores you? How do you feel when your kids don't listen to you?
Interesting.
How do you feel when you promised yourself that you would stick to a diet, and yet before the diet was over, you ended up binge eating on chocolate chip cookies or whatever it is, right? So you're asking someone how they feel about something.
Wow.
And you're opening a personal dialogue where you're intimately inviting someone to share about their experience on a topic that's related to what you do, so that you can better understand their experience in that. So we're kind of looking for three things. Number one, do they feel good about it and it's not a problem for them? Great.
Right.
They're not your perfect client necessarily for what you're wanting to help people with. Number two, they're neutral about it, meaning they have a symptom, but it hasn't developed into a problem yet. And it's like, it's not so bad. It's okay, but they're not likely to invest to make a difference about their life right now. Oh, then you have the third person that, like, this is really impacting them and they need help and they want help, and they're having a hard time. They're going through something that's challenging in their life, and there's somebody that you could make a difference for. And so it quickly gives us the opportunity to be able to qualify people and to be able to understand in their language how they're experiencing those challenges in their life right now. And it gives you a door of opportunity to be able to connect deeper with them.
Oh my gosh, I want to break down so much of what you just said. So that was like a mini masterclass in like a 3-minute answer, because first of all, I love that you led with, how do you feel? Because so many of us lead with all the information, and we're in and we're thinking we're serving, but we're really not getting to the root of where they're suffering. So I love that you said feel, because I know you and I talk about this offline a lot. Like, it's so many struggling online entrepreneur service providers, authors, where they want so bad to start or grow something. They create the Facebook group, and like you said, they're in there doing these, what did you call them? They're not on topic, but they're like all left field, kind of,
Mindless
yeah, there's the word, mindless stuff, and they're getting engagement, which, you get a dopamine hit in the brain, and so you're like, oh, my group is amazing, but yet you're not asking the questions, maybe not even of yourself, because isn't it true, we were talking about this, how sometimes you don't even know really what your voice is yet, and like what true problem you solve. So I'd love for you to talk about how that kind of gets discovered as you're leaning in with these questions, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. I hear this all the time, this thought, this perspective, this belief that I just need to work on my messaging. And when I work on my messaging, when I nail my messaging, then I'm going to be set. Then the floodgates are going to open. The buyers are going to pour in.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell out. And I can laugh about this because I've told myself this story too.
Why we're both smiling, because we both uttered those exact words.
And it's so fascinating because we keep ourselves from creating the results that we want by virtue of thinking that something is standing between us and creating that. And for so long, I thought that someone had the magical unicorn answer to my perfect message that was going to be the perfect thing, that if I just got this nailed down, that it would all come together. But what I realized along the way was that our message is cultivated and created and adapted as we grow, as we gain experience, as we create connection with our people. And we develop our message so much based on the feedback and the response we get from people.
Yes.
And so if we think about as a child, you operate with your parents, you see children operating with their parents, they're stretching the limitations to see how far they can go with something as they discover their boundaries.
Mhm.
And as a business owner, we don't know what's going to land. And so I used to do, every so often, I would encourage my students to go through a challenge of doing 30 days of live streams, where every day we'd go live for 30 days. And I first did this because I was so scared of being on video and so uncomfortable. I thought this was going to help me bust through my discomfort of being on video. Like, if I could do this for 30 days, somehow I'm going to feel more comfortable. But what I started to realize in going through this process, and what my students really started to realize in going through this challenge, was that as they were doing these daily lives, you had to create an idea or a concept that you would talk about each day. And some of the things that you thought everybody would love and be like leaning in and excited to hear about, nobody was commenting, nobody was showing up. It was like radio silence. And then the topics that seemed like sometimes like just last minute put together, like, oh, I'll just talk about this. And then suddenly all these people start pouring in, it blows up, people are excited and they're leaning in. And so what we realize is, like, as you create your message, you've got to know your people in order to understand what's going to land, what's not going to land. And it has to be in languaging that makes sense so that they immediately get it. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. And so your Facebook group is ultimately your playground of practice and this tight-knit community of your perfect people that you're bringing in, that you're having the opportunity to practice developing your voice, talking to people, getting real-time feedback. And the feedback that you get through that process is 10 times faster than any process, because you're real time with real humans going through. And so it helps you cultivate and create and dial in that message that gets more and more clear, so that you can start to more clearly and quickly articulate to people exactly what you do, exactly what you help them with, in a way that they're like, oh, I need that. That's so good. That's exactly what I need.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So good. Because here's where we see people struggle. And this is what Facebook groups and engagement in Facebook groups is so powerful for, in a very specific way. Because when entrepreneurs get started, we all think this is my purpose and I'm going to go out and sell my purpose. And what you just said, and I'm just going to say it in a different way, is you are not, I hate to burst the sweet pink bubble, but you are not selling your purpose. You're solving a problem. Like, that's, you want to avoid the economy issue right now. You want to like create your own economy, solve people's problems. And here's the thing, the problem at its core might be the same 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to 2022. But I am telling you, it's wearing different clothes and has a different shade of lipstick. Like, it's being communicated differently. And so what I see is like somebody talking about purpose, so that's missing, or they've identified the problem, but they're using language from another era. And so it's just not landing. So I love that this is kind of this incubator where, if you're really in it to serve people. Now, if you're not in it to serve people, you probably should turn this off right now, because that's kind of like, this is really the thing. But like, if you're in it to serve people, then it's so powerful to have a platform somewhere where they're congregating together and you're hearing what is the language of today, because there's been more experience. There's been things 2019, we did not have the word pandemic in our vocabulary, like all of these things that now we do. Yet we still have people trying to market the same way they marketed back in 2019 and wondering what's the problem. So I love that you talk about that. This is this incubator of getting in and having conversations and meeting them in that intimate problem, and not meeting the people who are like, it's kind of a problem, but really leaning in. So I'd love for you to talk about, like, what are some of the things, I know you've got an event coming up and you're going to teach a lot of this, but what are some of the things that, if they're convinced it's a group, they've started their group, they're really leaning into engagement and they're really wanting to solve someone's problems. Like, what are some of the clues, some of the things they can be asking about? Just ways to like really get them to engage in the language of what they're dealing with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So one of the first things when someone joins your Facebook group is you can ask pre-join questions.
Okay.
And one of my favorite all-time questions for people coming in for your pre-join question is to ask them, what is the number one question that you have as it relates to, and then insert whatever you help people with.
Wow.
So what's the number one question that you have as it relates to meeting a good quality man? What's the number one question you have as it relates to booking your first stage? What's the number one question that you have as it relates to landing your dream job? Whatever it is that you help people with, you're going to ask them what that one question is. The wonderful part about this is that it gives you all of their answers to that question is now headlines for live streams, topics for posts, topics for emails. It's telling you exactly what they're looking for in a non-invasive way. You see, where most people go wrong is they ask questions like, what's the biggest challenge you're facing as it relates to meeting a good quality man or growing your business? And then the person that receives that question is thinking, well, first of all, I don't really know you yet. So I don't know.
Get intimate with you on the first date.
Yes. Like that just feels a little awkward. And then the second part is it's as though that there's something that's wrong with them. And so immediately start off the relationship with someone's back up thinking, well, like, I don't want to open up, or I don't have a problem, or why would you say that I have a problem? Even though I may have a problem, we haven't had the opportunity to develop any rapport with that person yet. So when we ask the question in the frame of what's your number one question, it's still based on their problem that they're experiencing, but now it's in a way that doesn't make them feel lousy about it, but it's still addressing something. So I love using that and incorporating it in creating our content and our concepts of how we communicate and how we talk with people. And we also want to make sure, and we'll go through this I'll be going through this in a series as well, is how do we start asking some of the questions that's having people raise their hand to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm interested. This, I'm interested in this. I would like to know more about this. So a great example is you couldn't even say, maybe you don't even have a resource created on this. And I might say, you know what, we just hosted an event. We did over, $100,000 in sales from this event, and we repeated it. And 3 times over, we've created this event. We've done over $100,000 in sales consistently and repeatedly. And I've finally decided that people are starting to ask me, how are you doing that? If I created a resource on the step-by-step process that we did to build out that event so that you too could get the framework for having a 6-figure event, would you want access to that? So what I'm doing is I'm just letting them know I'm sharing something that was created. I'm asking them, if I were to put this together, would they be interested? So this is before you even create something, you can start gaining interest. And guess what? If they're not interested, so what? Like that idea, maybe it didn't land with them. So come back later and come back with another concept. So where most people do instead is they go and spend hours to create something, and then they put it out to the market, and then people aren't interested. And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this thing now?
Oh, yeah. And then they try to force that thing. Oh, no, you really, really want it, and wonder, like, why isn't anybody engaging? We're back to that cycle again.
Yes.
So it's a real testing ground of first of all, where their problem is deeply at, what language they're using, but also like, do you think this would solve your problem? Because that's, getting to, I can't think of any other venue, any other place where you can say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Are you interested, with that being actually an act of service versus feeling awkward and weird because you're like trying to sell something? So you create this environment. Now, I know you've got a series coming up, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but I'd love for you to like, what do you do specifically, like to really get because you have like the best groups. Like if I go in, like they're active, things are going. So I know you've got like all these ninja tricks, which I know you're going to share in the series too, but like, what would you say if somebody's got a group right now and the frustration they have is I don't have the engagement, and I know if I had the engagement, the sales would start to come. So what would you advise them to do to kind of get the community feel of that, and like that I have to go check that group today kind of feeling going for somebody?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And first, we always want to take a look at data and numbers and see where we're at with actually our active members in our group, so we have an indication. And we'll go through how to check that in details in the training series, free training series I'll share in a moment. So we go through, want to kind of have an assessment. Let's have a starting point so we know where we're starting. And then what we want to take a look at based on that number, we decide, okay, does this need, it's like, are we flatlined? Like, do we need like a revival? Do we
Do we need a Holy Ghost moment right here? Do we need to have like
do we need to shock the group back into life? And if that's the case, then having like a 30-day re-engagement campaign that is just focused on reviving and getting the group talking and engaging. Sometimes that's necessary if we've let it slide and it's been flatlined for a period of time before going into like an actual sales campaign. It's about bringing life back into it. But most often the case, it's just kind of dwindled. Most often the case, people don't realize that there's active members in their group that are actually consuming the content, even though they might not be liking and commenting. Wow. They're actually consuming it. And so we get to take a look at that metric. Most people are shocked at how many people are actually still paying attention when it doesn't feel like they are. Wow. And so when that's the case, what we want to take a look at is creating a live experience in the group that is bringing the members together, that's creating a shared experience, that's solving a problem, moving people through. And that shared experience will revive a group that has felt like it's been dormant, but there's still people that are tuning in and paying attention. So it really depends on the starting point first. Do we go through 30 days of like reset the clock? Yeah. Like, it's like I'm jiggling with my hands, like the paddles, the AFib paddles that shock someone's heart back into life. Do we do that for the 30 days first? Or do we go directly into creating conversation, asking those purposeful engagement questions, and going through a free shared experience inside of the group that is bringing everyone together for a common cause and creating that movement inside of the group? So either of those are super effective, and sometimes we stack them on top of each other.
All right, I'm going to ask the question that everybody in their mind is thinking right now before we talked about this cool thing that you're doing soon. At the end of the day, Christina, like, everybody is altruistic, want to serve, want to help people. But at the end of the day, they also would like some sales. Like, they'd also like to have clients and maybe quit their 9-to-5 or go full-time or scale. So I'd love for you to talk about like, what is the connection in your mind between a group, an engaged group, and converting those people into their best clients, and continuing that process? Like, is that like, are you selling in the group? Like, what is the thing that works to take them from a highly engaged person in the group to somebody who buys your program?
Yeah, so I would say at first is taking a look at, okay, if I was going to sell, I said, okay, do you have access to 10 to 15 hot leads that you know that are on the verge of buying from you right now? Mm-hmm. And we asked that to you, the listener that's tuning in right now. Yeah. Do you have access of knowing 10 to 15 people right off the bat, off the tip of your tongue, that you have a relationship, you have a connection with, or they're on the verge of buying? And for some of you that have that, maybe the question is, do I have 50 people? Your Facebook group is giving you the opportunity to have a hot leads list and a warm leads list that you're continuing to move people down. So you're moving people from cold to warm to closed, and cycling through your people. Yeah. So how you effectively move people to become a buyer, it starts with creating that rapport, creating that connection, having that two-way some element of conversational dialogue where there's a connection that's being made, followed by an invitation. So when I was sharing about the free shared experience that goes into your group, essentially what that's doing is it's like the appetizer leading up to the invitation to work with you more closely. And this can be packaged up and done in many different formats. And again, we'll talk about that in the free training series, but taking a look at how do we create an experience? The free experience is designed to create desire, to create demand for what you sell, so that by the time that you actually present your offer for them to join you in your program and your coaching and your course, whatever it is that you're selling, your membership, you already have these people that have raised their hand like, yes, I'm interested. This is exactly what I've been looking for. And they're ready to jump in. So you're essentially planning out like the breadcrumbs, I call it. You're laying out the breadcrumbs. You're moving people down the path. They're saying these mini yeses along the way, so that by the time that you present your offer, you already know who's crossing the line. You already know who's coming in the room.
Oh, so good. Because we always talk about this together. Our heart break when we see people chasing strategies that it doesn't like bring them into the same room. Imagine like speaking from a stage that people were like all through the hotel. Like you would never do that, but yet we're doing that as we're trying to build our businesses, because we're not in a congregated place with a single mission, bringing them on a journey toward their ultimate yes to themselves. As my community always hears me say, their yes is a yes to them, not to you specifically. It's to solve their problem. So I love this. And I love that you have a training series coming up to help people accelerate in this. And I'm just going to recommend my community that we're going to pop the link for this series that she's going to be doing in the chat or in the show notes. If you're watching this live on YouTube, it'll be in the chat, but it's going to be in the show notes. So I'd love for you to talk about this series that's coming up and what they're going to be able to learn during that time.
Yeah, so it's going to be the Engage Your Group training series. And what we're gonna go through, we're going to talk about what are the pitfalls that you want to avoid if you want to have a highly engaged and profitable Facebook group. We're going to be talking about the time wasters, the things that you should not be spending your time on. This might shock you. And we want to make sure we're not doing the wrong things. So we're going to talk about what not to do and the mistakes to avoid. We're also going to be jumping in, and I'll be giving you real life examples on the engagement type content and posts and how to get people excited and revived. We're going to be talking about how to create that free shared experience to create that desire and demand for your paid offers. We're going to talk about all three of those in the Engage Your Group training, and you can come and sign up for that, get your free ticket, get your spot in the room. And I know that as you go through, just the opportunity that's created when you have a community of people that are your best clients, that you're excited and fired about, that are paying attention to you, they're hanging on your every word, they can't wait, they're banging down the doors ready to buy from you, like, hello, when are you opening the doors to your program? That's what I want to help you create.
Ooh, that's going to be fire. Okay, now listen. My neuro coaches, you guys know I teach you Coach Launch Formula. I do that way of selling my coaching in my Facebook group. So like, you gotta that's the holy grail. 100% of you get clients by using that, but doing it in a group is like literally pouring gasoline on it. So you got to sign up. I know I'm speaking to my whole audience, but I wanted to talk to my certification students and clients specifically. But here's the thing, if you're listening to us because you want to start the side hustle, because you maybe have started the coaching business, or you're an author or you're a service provider, but you just can't seem to get the momentum towards the consistent sales, that system, right? Where you feel like I can turn it system on and I can make sure it goes and you can be predictable in the outcome of your income, then you got to get in this live training. I love our trainings. I always attend them live. I'm probably going to do a pop-up group for this too, just because I feel like it'd be pretty powerful to walk through it together and to have the learning as a shared experience. But don't miss this live training. She doesn't do them very often. I know you haven't done one of these for a hot minute. And so I don't know when she'll do them again. So make sure you get signed up. And I would love for you, Christina, just to, as we're wrapping up, like, what are your predictions? What are you seeing coming in terms of just what are you seeing in the marketplace for the rest of 2023 as we're really trying to grow and scale freedom.
I think that what I'm definitely starting to see a shift towards is that people for a long period of time were happily picking up everything in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So if they were experiencing a problem, they'd buy a mini course here, they'd buy a thing over there, and they'd be making many buying decisions. The challenge with that, though, is going through all these different things, they weren't creating the results that they were hoping to create.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, and more people flooding into the industry, people have become more advanced in their thinking, in making decisions, meaning that they're spending more time in consideration of their buying decision because they want to be making the right decisions for them and their business. And as a result of that, relationships are going to win. That means connection is going to win. That means intimacy is going to win. That means realness, authenticity, real humans that are creating interactions and connections with their people are going to be the ones that are going to win in this economy. So the way I see it, as we're starting to shift into the year and see things starting to move, we're going to see the greatest amount of opportunities of growth. And the beautiful part is as these changes happen, when you're in the earlier stages of your business, you can pivot and adjust very quickly. You're not moving a big ship. The larger the ship, the longer it takes to adapt and to adjust and to pivot and course correct. So the way I look at this is like the ship is starting to turn, like the whole market is starting to turn. And if you want to stay ahead, if you want to take advantage of the greatest opportunities, we're going to see higher and higher sales conversions coming up with opportunities for those that are putting their clients first, those that are focusing on building relationships and connections with their people, because people always remember not what you said per se, but how you left them feeling. And this is going to be the season where it matters how you're leaving your people feeling.
Oh, always so much gold. This is separation season, y'all. Like, don't do the old things. You guys have heard me through 67-day year, right? Don't do the old broken things and expect different new results. Like, it's time to really learn how to be at the front of the pack, not in the middle or toward the back. So I'm so glad you're doing this series. We'll pop the link down below and we'll see you inside your series. I cannot wait for this to get started. I'm really excited about it.
Me too. Can't wait to dive in.
All right. Thanks for being on again, Bestie. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right. That's it for this week on the Epic Success Podcast. Get down in the show notes. Save your seat. I know sometimes she maxes out on seats in her training. So just take action right now. It is separation season. So make sure that you're prepared to be at the front of the pack, getting people to hear and see your message and change lives in the process. All right, that's it for this week. I'll see you next week on the Epic Success Podcast. Bye for now.